Our last presentation is by Lakhi Shreya from IIT Hyderabad, and she's going to be speaking on understanding the development Indian calligraphy with focus on Devanagari. So it is a presentation on calligraphy vis-a-vis Devanagari. So Lakhi, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. So, hello everyone. I'm Lakhi Shreya. I'm this final year student from IIT Hyderabad. I'm thankful to Dr. Mohammed Shahid for being my guide and mentor in writing this paper. Also, I'm thankful to the Typography team for giving me this opportunity to present my paper on this platform. So, as ma'am already stated, the title of my paper is Understanding the Development in Indian Calligraphy with focus on Devanagari. This paper aims to show the development in Indian calligraphy with focus on Devanagari script, how it evolved over a period of time, as it will help the budding calligraphers get an idea about writing techniques and practices to open up hope of motivating them to work in a direction to spread and preserve this beautiful and unique art. My motivation for writing this paper started when I encountered Devanagari letter forms of some students in my locality which were not in the order in which letters are generally constructed. So I started to interview some students to understand their method of letter construction, which further motivated me to understand how the letter construction has been changed over a period of time and what role was there of the tools used for writing these letters. In the paper, we have tried to look at how practice of tools have affected the form of letters over a course of time. A script, as we know, is a writing system that allows one to communicate their idea in a language through set of alphabets or symbols. The evolution in this domain starts right from the time of pictograph and petroglyphs. In Indian context, Brahmi is known to be the originator of most of the scripts we have across the country today, including Devanagari, Bengali, Gujarati, etc. Talking about the Brahmi, this is one of the known Brahmi inscription from rock cut edicts of Ashoka. The emergence of Devanagari can be traced back from the Brahmi through Nagari and Gupta scripts. At the time of rock inscription, there are samples of scripts that are available which are being written from right to left order, such as this Kharoshti. The reason of this inverted direction of writing could be possibly due to the way people used the tools, like holding the chisel in left hand and hammer in their right hands to avoid the risk of personal injury while hammering the chisel. Whereas the reason for reversing this writing style later after emergence of stylus or and paper or leaves could be from the motor point of view, as if they would have been following the same direction, it might have caused the ink on the paper to smudge while writing. So next I'm going forward with the development of Brahmi to the Devanagari script. Table here shows the development of few listed Devanagari alphabets from early Brahmi we saw on the Ashokan edicts to the modern day Devanagari we use today. Later in the presentation, we'll see and try to examine this development focusing on a single alphabet. For now, let us just have a quick glance at Devanagari lettering in the Devanagari script. The Devanagari we know is an alpha syllabary writing system wherein the vowels and the consonant are separated and are arranged in the order in which the rows are grouped in a way that in a phonetic order. So the order of alphabets in the Varnamala are such that the vowels are arranged first, followed by the consonants and then the conjunct consonants. The documentation of knowledge and thought through manuscripts have started way back in like 3rd century BC. In this process, the materials and tools have evolved significantly. These tools include stone, clay tablets, copper plates, palm leaves, paper, parchment, etc. Alongside the evolution in the base material, the tools used for writing have also been improvised. Different kinds of styluses have come into action for this purpose. The material of these styluses also varied from place to place depending upon the availability in the local surroundings. Although iron and bamboo seems to be some common stylus used across different places, they were used along with the naturally made ink. These naturally made bamboo styluses also started to fade after the emergence of mechanical pens. Even though the output was more appealing with the bamboo stylus, the mechanical pen took over them as they were easy to use and less time consuming. I think the non-static tip of the mechanical pens results in like giving the less appealing in writing and somewhat creates different with the naturally made stylus. So for the study of the tools, I did a bit of research and study on naturally made stylus in some parts of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh that were primitively used in past as a writing tool. It is called Sarkanda. In this process, I interviewed local people who have used this tool in past and now are able to examine major difference in the two tools, major difference in the tools they have used previously and today's pens. So some highlighted differences felt by them between the two tools are first, the ink flow in the mechanical pens, which is consistent throughout the writing process. While using the bamboo styluses, it is a very back and forth process where you have to dip the stylus in the ink to produce writing. And the second major difference being the time taken with the bamboo styluses, which is Sarkanda, and the mechanical pens. So here is an image of the Sarkanda, which is a bamboo-like grass, which is available in parts of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh that was used for creating this stylus. Talking more about the other traditional materials used for writing in the past, here is an example of Ola Leaf Manuscript. For this, tender Ola leaves were collected and dried in the mild sunlight and further soaked in the mud tanks for about a month. For drying, they had to be kept in shades and not in direct sunlight that would cause them some shrinkage. The rough surface of the leaves were smoothened out later using a pumice stone or something and then tied together. So what interesting about this is the writing process, as generally the method of writing involves moving our hands forward over the base material, but here the base material is moved with one hand while the other hand is kept at one place, just holding the stylus to scribble on the seasoned leaves. So this is how the stylus looked that was used to inscribe text on the surface of the leaves, and posters showing how the stylus was held in hand, encircling the stylus with thumb between the four fingers tightly. And the stylus was a two-way tool having both nail-like pointed element to inscribe the text as well as a knife attached to it to size the leaves and make holes in them for binding purpose. Now look at the tools that have influenced the letter forms. Yeah, so the first example is from the Ashokan Pillar written in Brahmini. The enlarged image here shows the letter P. When we try to look at it closely and examine the impact of tools that were used to construct them, we can see how tools have the impact on the form of the letter. Like here, it seems like a sharp chisel-like object was used to carve the letter on the pillar, as the depth formed in the lines are sharp and very pointed. And we can see the letters are simple, geometric, and curves have been used here the least. Moving to another example of stone inscription from Swayambus, which is in Nepal, which again looks sharp and clear, sharp and have a very clear depth. Again, might be chisel-like sharp object was used for inscribing the text. We can see that the curves that are created for the loops in the Ka alphabet is comparatively short and somewhat pointed. It is more like an oval. Moving to another example, this is a manuscript on Birch Bark. Here we can see more curves are added in the alphabet, which is somewhat similar to the curve we construct today, but the strokes are not very consistent in terms of the flow of ink. And it looks as if the writing tool used for the manuscript is somewhat naturally made stylus, which was continuously being dipped in the ink to write, which is why the ink flow is thick at the bottom of the letter form and at points where the stylus is lifted after forming the strokes. Next is of a palm leaf manuscript, which I've already explained the process involved in writing on a palm leaf manuscript using a sharp stylus. Here we can see that after scraping on the leaf using the stylus, the text has been highlighted with a blank ink. Since the material is palm leaf, not a hard surface like stone, the depth of the letters created is also less sharp. Next is a paper manuscript from 18th century. In this, we can see some consistency in the ink flow than the previous ones we saw. For this, traditional lip pens have been used. When we see the manuscript, it looks very organized and appealing. Maybe because the traditional lip pens, after being practiced well for use, gave a very consistent output. Last example in this series is from the present day calligraphy practice video by Professor Santosh Ksirsagar using a sponge tool. Here we can see the stroke weight being consistent throughout the letter, which looks decorative and appealing. The complement of this being beautiful, I think, comes due to the fact that it is consistent in terms of size, weight, as well as proportion. So further, I'll be just going through some examples and works of notable artists in the field and experimental in the field of calligraphy and experimental typography. So this one is by late Professor R.K. Joshi, who was an academic type designer and calligrapher at IDC Bombay, whose passion of letter forms left a mark in this field. The two examples, the first one we see is from the piece of Marathi poem by poet Keshava Sut, which seems to be written by a brush tip pen, and next one is a Devanagari tree, which seems to be written from a round tip pen. The next examples are by Shreya Akshay Kalsi sir, who is renowned calligrapher and founder of Akshay Kalsi School of Calligraphy. He hasn't only adopted this art form, but have spread it in every possible manner. Here are some of his works where he have been exploring in terms of calligraphy in different domains like interior spaces, fashion, as well as product. And these are some of the exploration and experiments being done in this field. Indian calligraphy hasn't just served one purpose, not just being a medium of communication. I think it has served a lot of purposes. And today there are artists and designers who visualize these alphabets into different products and various domains. And there are people who are working really hard in keeping this art form alive and passing it on to generation and encouraging them to practice it more. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. I hope it helps the viewers and readers get some insight about the Indian calligraphy, its history, and how it evolved over a period of time due to advancement in the tools we had and we have now. Here are just some references which helped me writing the paper. That is all from my end. Thank you everyone for being a patient listener.
Thank you, Lakhi, for that very, systematic presentation on the history of materials and materials for the tools, and contextualizing the styles as a result of what was available. Something that is not known to a lot of young people, and I think they would like to know. And it has very strong implication for the fact that the new education policy 2020 is looking to introduce design for young children. And, the children and the exercises you give them could comprise exercises of different tools with which they can do calligraphy. They can use different surfaces like sand, mud, etc. And it would be therapeutic as well for them. And very early groundings of calligraphy as simply a fun thing to do, with something that students of your generation, our generation, missed out on because we had such textbookish syllabus. So thank you for making that very systematic presentation. I really appreciate the history that you attach to it, and it would be nice if you can actually go beyond Ashoka edict in earlier times. If you can actually put that together, then I will come back to you for showing it at different forums.
Definitely.
Let me know once you've done that, or if you want to talk to me, we'll come to that later. But also for the global decade, these would be important initiatives, right? So we'll be sure to get in touch with you. So thank you, Lakhi. I'm now going to throw the session open for the audience. And if you can make your questions short, just come and speak, because that has its own power. We'll devote 10 minutes to the session. And I know there are a lot of good comments. I can read out the comments, but if you have a question, do come and ask. Okay. Meanwhile, let me go into the chat box and read out some of the comments. And if you still, there's so many actually, which is a tribute to the young presenters. And I have to say that I was just sitting and trying to recall when we had started this dedicated session for young students, for students. And I seem to go back into not more than 5 years. And every year without exception, we've received fantastic presentations. We've never had difficulty, shortlisting eight to 10 student presentations, always path-breaking in their own ways and fresh takes. And I urge you to keep up. So there is, I think I'll go with Sanskriti, since we talked so much about Sanskrit. Sanskriti says, liked how you addressed, someone wants the IDs of the presenters. So it's like an NTV show where you have these people who come to, there's a term for them, you take them for future references. Every paper, someone says here, congratulations to Professor Marion Junja. Marion, She's a ex-student of IDC. Marian says, congratulations to everyone, very positive, and the future is in good hands, as a lot of the work has been done in isolation in the lockdown. Due credits to all mentors and faculty too. Yes, Marion herself is a visual communications person, and at least 4 out of the 8 mentors are mentors we already know about: Namki Nath, Girish, then Saurav Srivastav, and there's one more name I remember as part of the guided projects, and there were 4 other projects of at least 5 other projects that were self-exploratory. Yeah, I Mohammed Shahid, right? I mean, Shahid, in 2019 March, he presented his PhD thesis. I was there for the presentation, a person full of diligence. So yes, happy to have all these mentors, do such a good job of grooming their students. Can we please take a couple of questions from the audience? Come up, speak up, and talk to these young kids. Would be nice.
Ma'am, so I just wanted to know, ask Sushrut if he could just explain his process a little bit of how he did his project, because it was a very interactive project and I wanted to know more about it.
Okay, Shushrut, please go.
Yeah.
And even
Hi.
Preeti, actually, yeah. Hi, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just show it to you what I did as a process. So as I told you guys, like I have associated, I've took this property of sound, I've took this property of frequency that I wanted to work with, and I associated some shapes with it. And why these shapes? Because these are just platonic shapes that are just these are like basic shapes that I could use. So that was like the assumption or like the idea that I took forward with. So with these
So
shapes,
I just 1 minute, just so is there a reason? Of course, I understood your shapes concern. I just wanted to know: is there a reason that you chose a hexahedron particularly for 500 hertz or something? Did you like? Is there a
no,
psychology behind that?
no,
Okay, just assumption, right?
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
assumption. So what I was thinking in my mind, like, so sphere would be something because I wanted to associate with the low frequency sound, so it would have like a very like smooth surface, and tetrahedron being the very sharpest of it. So the transition is it in the way that it is basically the sphere is transforming into the tetrahedron shape. So that is how I chose my shapes to be. So, and that's the pretty much the process. So I'll just show it to you. So there were like, so basically there are 5 layers, right? And each layer would get affected by any sound that you drop into it. Each wood layer would. So let's say if I play a bass sound, so only the layer with a sphere would get only affected. So here's an
And how is
example.
that happening? How exactly is that happening? Yeah.
So with this particular, so I use basically Cinema 4D. So there are certain effectors as well. So what I did, what happens is like there's a sphere. If I play a sound, the sphere can maybe individually as a sphere can go large and can go smaller. But all of this together working out can create a different scenario. I mean, create a different basically visual. So let me just show you that example. So this is the bass sound. So that's why sphere are coming out of it. Okay, let me just play this treble sound, let's say. So the shape would be different as well. So this was one system, but it's just whatever sound I throw at it, it just take the frequency, the value of the frequency, and it just makes the shape go bigger or smaller. Yeah, so that was the triggering element which was going behind it. Yeah,
So
Very interesting. Thank you.
thank you.
we maybe Shushrut, thanks. Priti, could you briefly address the question placed here
Yes, ma'am.
about process?
Sure. I'll just quickly share screen. So, Gagi, thanks for the question. The initial process, what I did was take the paragraphs, the specific paragraphs that I wanted to address from Meghadutam, and then I mapped it to a physical movement which made sense. For example, the first paragraph, I wanted a circular shape and motion, and then I sort of wanted it to sort of coil in and out, and there was a movement I wanted. So, what I would do is start off with a simple geometrical shape, and I would wrap the text around it. And then I had coded all these individual values that I could change and experiment. So, this is a tool that I built for the purpose of iterations. And once I knew that this is like the form or shape a motion that I wanted, then I would take those values and then apply interaction on it for the audience to interact with. So I'm just trying to uh, keep it short. So this is the process that I used, but I'm happy to connect with you and talk about it more if you're interested.
Right.
Yes, if you could just drop your email, maybe.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, in the interest of time, we'll wrap up.